Hey everybody, here we are again. It's your digital daddies. This time I got another daddy with me, and his name is Michael Eback. We're going to talk about all manner of things. He's got a show. He likes the things I like. It's going to be fun for us. It might be fun for you. If not, you'll turn it, and I'll never know because I get no feedback, and I won't feel bad about it. So, with that being said, we're going to jump right in here. Oh yeah, like and share and all that stuff. We're going to jump right in here with Mr. Eback, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. So, take the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Corey. Thanks for having me on here. I'm really, really excited. Yeah, so a little bit about me. I am one of the hosts of the podcast, the comedy improv storytelling podcast, M&A's Excellent Adventures. We've been doing that for a while. We wrapped up season one just at the end of last year with 100 episodes. It was this huge event that we've been building up to, and so we're kind of starting fresh in season two. Um, I've just been having a lot of fun with that. Outside of podcasting duties, I'm also a father of two. I have two daughters, which kind of fits in. That's why I'm here as well, fitting the dad motif. Yeah, I'm an amateur spray paint artist. I love horror, professional wrestling. I'm, kind of a big nerd for a lot of different things. So, um, yeah, and just taking it easy.
Right on. Yeah, you definitely cross off a few of the boxes that we have on for our guests to come on the show. And I don't know. Yeah, there's some times where I'm like, "What do dads like?" And I'm like, "Well, you're a dad, and you like such and such. So just talk about that." So we'll be talking about things that two dads like, and hopefully other dads like it too. I, as I mentioned to you earlier, I want to get the important stuff out front. You've got your podcast out there, which I'm certain that we're going to go back to at least a couple more times. But then the main vein of the show, I wanted to get at least a couple of dad questions out there. So the first ones that popped into my head are the ones that we're going to run with real quickly. Now, with
Sure.
two daughters, I'm wondering, did you want a boy? Did you want girls?
So, interestingly enough, and I haven't met a lot of people who are on the same vein as I am. I wanted girls. So, growing up, I had my two closest cousins were boys, and they were 8 and 10 years younger than me. And when I was a teenager, they drove me nuts. Uh, and then my next cousins were two girls, and they were much younger. So I was an adult, and so they were very sweet to me. I didn't have the teenager thing dealing with it. So I was like, boys are obnoxious. I just want girls.
Interesting. That does make sense. That experience from earlier in life would lead you to that. I didn't have really, I didn't really have anything that was leaning or pushing me towards boy or girl. I kind of did want a
Sure.
girl. Just I don't know why. Just I think that they're cuter. They're like sweeter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like originally I was like I kind of want a girl, but we ended up with a boy, and I mean I'm certainly not at all unhappy with him. He is just as
Oh
perfect
yeah.
as he could ever be. The only problem that I have with him actually is that he is nearly a twin of my wife's brother, and that guy is just a
Oh.
total douchebag. So it is like really hard to see pictures of him as a child and be like, no, I can't stand that. I hate that they look alike.
I'm
So
sorry.
another, no worries, no worries. There's one other question that I say always or almost say always, but oftentimes I will ask the guests, and that is basically the number one reel that I always try to get out there. I will cut this episode up into reels and hopefully get a million views and realistically get none. But the one reel that I always am trying to get out there is best dad advice. So being a father of two girls, taking that into
Yeah.
account, what would you consider your best dad advice?
Oh gosh. That's they're pretty young, so I haven't quite gained the wisdom just yet. But I think the best dad advice is gosh, to just be present. That's that's huge for me. I grew up with a single mom, and so I didn't really know what going into being a dad, kind of what that was, but I knew the one thing that I needed to be was there. Um, and like, and I feel like a lot of dads can't really stand the idea of not being there for their kids, anyways. But it just don't, yeah, don't kind of be lax about the idea of being present. That's really going to be important to your kids, and they're going to remember, you know, that you were there.
That advice gets I was like, is that a ghost?
Yeah.
That advice gets repeated quite a bit. It never does fail to hit the mark, because
Sure.
it is very true. uh, Similar to you, I grew up, my dad was in the picture. Like, my parents were divorced, and so it was a very much a single mom situation.
Sure.
But my dad was in the picture enough that when things deteriorated with my mother at around 11 or 12, I was able to move over. And like, it's a complicated situation. I lived with my
Sure.
grandmother, but I was under my dad's legal custody. So he was in the picture enough that that was a smooth transition, but
Sure.
he was not there. He did not teach me how to be a dad, how to be a man, or anything of that nature. And it was one of the, um, I guess, initial reasons why I started the show. There was a desire in me to learn how to dad, and to learn the things about just being a man that I had not learned up until this point.
Yeah.
And there, I feel like, you know, I feel like there's not a lot of people like me that would actually listen to a show like this. But if nothing else, I'm learning more and more with every guest. So eventually, I'm going to be super dad, and I'll be able to wear a cape like at all times. Um,
Absolutely.
I compare it to the old kung fu movies where I thought I was a good dad, and then like my son had like a meltdown and like beat my ass, and now I'm traveling to all these other like wise dads and learning their tricks, and I will come back to my son and I will like dominate him, and I will be the super dad that he needs, and I'll give him everything that he deserves.
That's one of the best analogies I think I've ever heard anybody say ever.
Right on. I
uh,
appreciate that.
and speaking of that too, I do remember on an episode I listened to earlier, something you said did kind of resonate with me, where you had mentioned that, I guess not to dig too personal or anything, but you had mentioned that, when you're faced with situations, sometimes you think about what your dad would do and you do the opposite
Yeah.
of that. But I totally get that, and I'm there too sometimes. Sometimes I'm worried, like with like genetics, if I'm like, are there certain things I'm maybe more likely to do or respond to in a certain way without even knowing it, that's kind of where that's coming from. So yeah, that's also something I try to be conscious about. So um yeah, like I said, that just stood out to me when I was listening earlier.
I'm glad that you were able to find a touchstone in what you listen to. I'm never, like, initially, like maybe most people that start a podcast, I was like, I'm gonna start this, I'm gonna be fucking famous, I'm gonna make $1 million. This is the
uh,
field for me. I enjoy this. It's not work. Like, this is gonna take off. Now things have changed, and it is a long time hobby that I take joy in. And my main goal is that hopefully, you know every reel that gets, if I put out a reel and it gets 200 views, hopefully two or three people like it actually affected and actually took something from that. And if like maybe eventually, like I like to think that that happens, but what I would really like to have happen is for those people to be like, oh hey man, that really touched me and changed my life, thanks a lot.
yeah.
But that never happens. I almost never get feedback. I say almost because I do sometimes, and it is nice to have. We'll get into that a little bit later on. So moving on to things that are a little bit less dad and a little bit more just fun stuff to talk about.
Sure.
Based off of the title of your show, I'm assuming that you like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures.
Yeah, so we were we were brainstorming the show, and we had the premise, we had everything down, and my co-host Anthony and I were just going back and forth on like what is the title of the show. And so we were just spitballing, and it just kind of came to me of he had never actually seen it, but I was like, it's M&A, like Michael and Anthony, M&A's Excellent Adventures. And it just, he was like, yeah, I kind of like that. And we just rolled with it. Um, yeah. So it's been a while since I've seen the movie, admittedly, but it's pretty rad. So, um,
Right. It's actually kind of I can't think of the word right now because my brain doesn't always work. But there's a guest that's in the reels that I'm about to start releasing this week, and his episode actually ends with him saying something about and when I was in training or when I was in school or something like that. He's like, I had to give a speech and I told people, I forgot exactly how the quote goes, but basically, party on and be excellent to each other, or however it goes.
yeah, that's awesome.
And the actual episode, the recording at the time continued on for like 15 minutes, but I was like, fuck that, we're ending it right there. And so I cut it off right there. Like if you want to hear the rest of the episode, you have to go to YouTube and listen to it there.
Yeah.
So with that being said, though, who is your favorite, Bill or Ted? And are you Bill or Ted?
Oh man. I think, oh, that's a good question. Gosh, let's see. I think I might be more of a Bill. I think I'm more of a Bill, and I think Bill is also Ted's my favorite, actually. Sorry, Ted is my favorite one, but I might be more of a Bill. I think we'd all like to be Teds, but
Yeah,
I feel like just something about it, you know.
I totally agree. And even though I can't put it into words how they differ, like if you had given me time, or if I'd given myself time to write down the adjectives to describe their differences, I could come up with it. But just on the spot, I'm like, I am more like a Bill, but man, I'd love to be like a Ted.
Yeah,
Like I can't
yeah,
really, I don't know. I mean, beyond the looks, obviously Ted is like, a handsome dude.
yeah.
But and Ted and Keanu Reeves in real life is just an amazing human being.
Oh yeah,
But Bill, he was in Lost Boys too, so he's got that going for him.
that's true.
But
That
yeah,
is true.
without being to vocalize it or put it into words in any way, I do agree with you there. So there were we're going to do a bit of rapid fire for some of this stuff, but
Sure.
for other things, we'll kind of take it in a bit more depth. So Evil Dead is a huge love of mine. I read a lot of the comic books that came out more recently, and I obviously have seen, well, I almost said all the movies. I've seen every movie with Bruce Campbell.
Sure.
I don't bother with the ones that he's not in. But my opinion aside, what is your favorite Evil Dead movie?
Evil Dead 2 is my favorite one, which is it's the I feel like it's kind of the basic answer when
Yeah,
people ask. Um, but it just hit that sweet spot for me between the like all out goofiness of Army of Darkness and the a little bit more of a serious tone, a little of the original. It feels like it's kind of right in the middle there. Of course, we get the classic chainsaw and there's so many moments that I love it. And also it's so not sorry, I don't mean to go off on a bunch of tangents, but when I was really young, I was terrified of everything. And there was an individual at the time when I was about 10, 11, who was like, okay, I'm going to slowly introduce you to horror. And now I love all things horror. But Evil Dead 2 was actually one of the very first movies he showed me. Um, and he really just kind of explained it, showed me like behind the scenes stuff. So there's a lot of there's just a really special place in my heart for Evil Dead 2. And I know that you don't necessarily mess with the ones that Bruce Campbell's not in, but I will say the first remake was actually really good. I thought it was really good.
that I did watch that one, but it was, just a step beyond, you know,
That's
for me. I'm more like
yeah.
comedy. Like I watch a lot of cartoons.
Oh,
so
totally. Yeah,
so there's a side of me that needs that. Like Halloween, I will always watch some horror movies. But
sure.
with that with that being said, though, like I've never seen any Saw movie, Hostel, never seen any of those, anything like that.
You don't need to.
So yeah, so that's just not me. That's just not me.
Sure.
So I think I was gonna say though, I think that for me, the Evil Dead, the level of my uh I guess love for each movie is dependent on when I saw it. I saw Army of Darkness first, so that holds a special place. And then I was like, holy crap, there's two before this. And so uh, my OCD made me watch one and then two. Whereas if I'd watched two first and then one, I probably would have liked two like even more.
Sure.
But as it is, I like two more than one, but I like three more than two.
Sure.
And I the show. Did you watch the show? The Army of
I
Darkness or whatever.
haven't gotten really into it, but I've watched, like, I started and then I don't remember what happened where I just
Well,
accidentally
you,
dropped it. But
yeah, I can't fault you for that. It did not end super well.
oh, that's a
So
bummer.
we're gonna. I mean, it was. I can't even remember like whether it was quote unquote happy ending or not. But there was a reason when it was canceled. It just kind of got cluttered and all that. I think
Sure.
maybe that they knew it was going to get canceled, so they try to like shove a bunch of stuff into the show at the end. Anyways, I saw that you like Assassin's Creed on your Facebook page. So who's your favorite assassin?
Um, so okay. I mean, there's definitely something about Ezio. I feel like most people would go with Ezio, but in I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. In Valhalla,
That's the one
the
I'm playing right now.
I there was something about that game that just sucked me in, and I was so invested in it. It had been a while since I finished it, but um, God, there was just something about it, and it felt pretty far removed from the original, like some of the classic ones. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was watching the show The Last Kingdom at the same time, which kind of has a Viking feel to it. So maybe that all just I was in a Viking phase or something. But I had a ton of fun with that one as well. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name.
I
Um,
know that Avor, is it
yes,
Avor for both of them? Okay, I know
yeah,
I'm playing the girl, so I didn't know if like for some reason they had
sure.
different names like they did in the one with Cassandra and her brother.
Was that Syndicate?
Oh well, that one too. That
Oh,
one's where
sure.
the brother and sister. Anyways,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure without like having looked into it that in this one it's the same character. It's just like you could play a male or a female.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, I take a bit of pride in this, though I have zero like to do with it. I got on Ancestry for I got addicted to Ancestry for a while,
Sure.
and I'm actually descended from Ragnar Lothbrok. So
Wow.
therefore I'm descended from Ivar and Ubu and any of the Ragnar sons. So it just like you, it kind of sucked me in
Sure.
because it was like almost family. Even though if I like time traveled back there, they would cut my head off and throw me on in a pit.
But
Um,
Corey, I think that makes you kind of a Viking in a way.
well, I think it's what do they say with I'm 1/16th Native American. I'm close to being 1/16th Viking or something like that.
Sure. Okay.
So okay, so as I said, we're going to take these kind of in depth or not. Oh, just for anybody caring, my favorite is either the I think it's Edward Kenny from Black Flag
Hmm.
or whoever I'm currently playing at the time. So, wrestling. I saw that you at least like WWE. Is that your only main follow, or do you like any of the other companies?
I don't watch the other ones consistently. I don't have cable, which is probably the biggest piece of it all. WWE is the most, it's like the easiest one to access for me. And it's what I grew up with and all that. So I try to keep up with like AEW, but I since I'm not watching the show, I'm not entirely in the know. But there's some different like YouTube channels and stuff too that do wrestling updates, and like I try to keep somewhat up to date with like Professional Wrestling Insider and stuff, but I'm not as diligent as I used to be on that. So right now, WWE is kind of the mainstay.
Right on. No worries there. I am a bit I'm a bit similar, but it's a vice versa situation.
Sure.
I follow WWE. I know what's going on, but I don't watch it as much. I don't have cable either, and if you've got a good ad blocker, I can send you a link that arg me matey. You can pirate whatever
Yeah, I'm all
wrestling you
for it.
want to get.
Okay.
Um, that's how I watch it. I watch AW Impact, whatever I want to watch.
Sure.
It you can try to watch it live, but sometimes the feeds are unstable. If you wait until the show has been off for like 10 minutes or so, you're good to go.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
if that's something you're interested in, if I don't send it to you, remind me and I will. It's not
Sure.
it's no big deal. I've actually got two different ones that maybe just the looks of one you like more than the other, but they're essentially the same.
Yeah.
Also, this one, the one I use most, if you like MMA or boxing, I'm a big boxing fan. So if you like either of those things, they have like a sister site that you can watch that stuff on too.
Okay. Right on.
Okay, so I'm a huge D&D nerd, and I saw that you like Lord of the Rings. So without digging, too deeply into topics that I'm sure you've picked apart, I'm just going to ask you to pick a race and a class if you were a D&D character.
Um, Half elven ranger is
So you're Legolas.
so yeah, pretty
Okay,
much.
right on, right on. I am typically either basically derivative Captain Jack Sparrow or some version of well a I don't know. Have you ever read Dragonlance at all?
I haven't. No.
No, no worry. Basically a darker, more cynical version of Gandalf.
Oh,
So
okay. Right on.
I will it not as dark as like Saruman or anything like that.
Sure.
But basically like that's where I waffle. So good that's just something I was interested in. You picked that one so quickly that we don't really have anything else to nibble on there. So we're gonna move on.
Sure.
And as I said, I've got all kinds of stuff here to discuss, and we're just gonna take it in order, I guess. But I saw that you're from somewhere up north of me, and I
Yeah.
was wondering, are you a hockey fan?
Not an avid hockey fan, but I do go to some of the local games. In North Dakota, we have the Fargo Force, and actually through my job, I get free tickets. So um,
Right on.
those are fun to go to. Some college hockey games are really fun as well. Um, haven't gone to an NHL one, but I love going. Um, I don't really have a lot of people who are into it as much as like if I go to a sports game, I want to watch it. Um, so I'm not always the most social with the people. I'm like, okay, but I actually want to see what's happening right
Yeah.
now.
Heaven forbid you be interested in the game. But I
Right.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, I guess I had a follow-up question if you said no, but maybe you can kind of answer this. There's all these they might have been from the 80s, they might have been from the 90s, I don't know, but those teen movies or whatever where and I'm getting real generic here because I can't name one, but basically I've got this idea in my head, maybe this prejudiced idea, biased idea that if you don't play hockey in the North, they you get picked on in school, like they're like, oh, you're a nerd if you don't play hockey, like you're a douchebag. Is it anything close to that?
Not where I'm from. No. Admittedly, there were probably a lot more hockey kids who got pinned with the douchebag label than the other way around. With not all of them. There were some really cool people there too, but I guess that's how I would kind of imagine Canada, which I'm like right underneath Canada. Um, but that's how I guess I kind of envision them being as well. But no, with us, there's actually more of a football culture here than there is hockey. Because NDSU has the Bison, and um, I don't really follow NDSU, but I guess the Bison are a pretty big deal. So there, that's definitely more prevalent here than hockey is.
I can see that. Yeah, being out west there, football's a big deal, especially college football. I
Mhm.
lived in Colorado for a while, and we got up to South Dakota. I
Sure.
well, just once, I think. Never any further north than that. So I have no experience with what I assume to be just wide open, empty spaces with dotted houses, miles apart from each other.
That's most of it, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so this brings us to the part earlier that I was kind of alluding to, where I talked about how I'm uh, I'm really needy when it comes to feedback, and it doesn't matter how much I get. Apparently, it's not enough. So,
Sure.
with that being said, even though these represent two of my most listened to episodes as far as the podcast itself is concerned, I don't really keep too much track of how these things do on YouTube. Though, if you're not on YouTube yet, I'm sure you are since you do a video podcast. But that seems to be like the place to pick up new followers. Like it's
We
super easy to pick up followers on YouTube.
Yeah, we that's where we promote primarily. I mean, we have our host platform and we do everything through there, but I think once we switch to doing video editing, and since it's comedy and storytelling, we put a little bit more into the video editing with maybe like some pop-ups, backgrounds to kind of set the scene a bit more. So I think just because we put more work into the video that we push that a little bit more. Uh, but yeah, absolutely.
It's yeah. I was. I mean, I'm not one that grows very fast. Like we are just now, right around 50-ish listeners across the platforms. But it is crazy. Like I posted a reel yesterday on YouTube, and then I got on there this morning, and I'd gained 9 followers from that one reel. And I was like, that wasn't even like that good a reel. Of course, that's the way it always goes. I
Right.
was like this reel is going to shake the planet, and it get 2 views or whatever.
Yeah,
And I'm
right.
like,
Oh God. I know
this is a
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah. I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. But anyway, I love YouTube for that. That being said, though, these 2 episodes, as I mentioned, they got the most views so far, or at least recently. I don't really keep up with overall. So the last month or so, they've got the most views or most listens, but I haven't got any feedback on them. So I'm going to force you to give me feedback, and I'm going to tell you the premise of these episodes. They're bonus content, even though I don't have a Patreon and may never have a Patreon. I
Sure.
market them as bonus content. So the premise of this whole thing is that I've developed a pop culture dad tournament where I pit dads from TV, comic books, movies against each other in a tournament, and then at the end of it all, we'll have the number one reigning dad. And I've already like realized that I'm going to need to either do another one or something of that nature because I've left many dads out. That being said, though, the first 2 matches were we'll start with this one. The first match that I talked about was Darth Vader versus Ned Flanders, and I, without telling you who won, I
Mhm.
just wanted to get your feedback on the idea behind that matchup and who you think would win.
Sure, sure. I love the matchup. It's kind of like pure evil versus pure good, you know. Uh
Yeah, they just have to be dads. And
and-
I do not that this has to in play into your decision, but the only way I could determine to pick a winner was to list some dad wins and then to list some dad fails.
sure.
Yeah, and that may evolve as the shows go on. I've only done 2, as I said, but with that being said, though, your thoughts?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically it's to decide who the better dad is, not like who would win in a fight or anything like that.
Yes, better
Okay.
dad.
Um, I mean, on one hand, you have Darth Vader, who, like, I mean, he's certainly responsible for the birth of his children. Um, but, you know, you could say in like torturing Leia and blowing up her planet that it was kind of teaching her life lessons about kind of letting go of material things and, you know, struggling through hardships. Luke losing his hand It was kind of, just dealing with loss. And he did offer to kind of guide Luke through that experience, but Luke said no and then jumped. Um, oh, but and then eventually taking out the Emperor to save his kid. So you get some points there, and then maybe some questionable stuff. But then Ned Flanders, on the other hand, um, I do remember an episode of The Simpsons where it was very like the kids were like excited to do the dishes and do this and this and this. But not only do I think that the Flanders kids would be really annoying if I were their age. Like, I don't think I would really want to be friends with them. Um, I feel like there's a level of hmm, not necessarily coddling, but like I don't know. It's tough, when you lay it out that way. But I'll go with Flanders because he didn't cut off his kid's hand.
All right. Briefly, I agreed with you. I went with Ned Flanders. He is a number one seed in the tournament, and
Yeah, he's a pretty great.
yeah, Vader is a number 4 seed, which is the bottom. I did say that Vader got points for saving Luke, but I also tempered that with mentioning that I'm not certain Vader would have done what he did if the Emperor hadn't got all tortury and actually
Yeah.
really went to town with the lightning. So that even that like it was iffy. I do love your point about teaching Leia life lessons about loss. That's a really good point. And if I had thought about that, might have played into it. But with that, yeah, with that though, I did agree and went with Ned Flanders. The only real negative thing I could say about him was that he might be, and I'm sure that I might have had like one or two others, but the one that sticks with me is that he might be too religious, because there's one episode where he says that he does everything in the Bible, even the things that contradict the other things, and that there's some pretty messed up stuff in the Bible.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to really get down on the details of that particular like thought process. But if I had, it might have disqualified. And I mentioned like this might have disqualified him from the whole tournament, because that can mess somebody up.
True.
But with that being said, though, his kids are really well behaved, and I'm sure they're going to be great people one day, even if they have no friends and everybody hates them. So
That'll be good, kids.
well thought out, well thought out. The second match is a 3 seed versus a 2 seed. The 3 seed is Mufasa from The Lion King, and he's taking on Carl Winslow from Family Matters. Thoughts and your
Oh,
winner.
that's a lot harder, I think, than the original. So admittedly, I I'm not familiar, but I'm not as familiar with Family Matters. I do love it, but I don't necessarily watch it. I haven't seen the entire series. I gotta go with Mufasa. Like, that's just what my heart's telling me. um, Carl Winslow's great. Nothing against the guy, but Mufasa's like, he's like a status that is almost unachievable in my eyes as a kid born in the 90s.
I do totally agree with you. My matchup, Mufasa was entered into the tournament, and then this also entered into my decision because of a friend that mentioned him, and the friend mentioned I should have him in, and then he mentioned that he should lose because Mufasa is a bad dad because he's not there for his son for the majority of his life. And
That's
I said, which I'm sure you're about to say, I was like, it's not his choice. He's killed. And he said it doesn't matter, like, and he didn't really get into it, but basically, like, as I mentioned in the show, Scar is a shady person, and he should have known. And he, not taking steps to counteract him, it did not, it didn't like put him in a good light, and then it didn't excuse it. It made it easier not to excuse him when he then is, missing for most of Simba's life. And then I mentioned that like Simba, they don't talk about this in the movie, but Simba is like a lion, and yet he's in that jungle for years eating bugs and fruit, and like he must have just been pooping and throwing up every single day. Like it must have just been a miserable existence.
Yeah.
And that really is, reflects back on the fact that his dad's not there. Though with all that being said though, my decision did fall to math and a mistake. Whereas for Carl, my column included good dad, good family man, good police officer, all as different um, reasons. For Mustafa, I actually did that in the episode. I was when I was introducing him, I was like Mustafa, and then I didn't notice it until after it was done, and then I was like, I'm not recording it again. So I was again and again, I was like Mufasa, and then I listened, I was like wrong volume, and then I recorded it again until I got the volume relatively close. So anybody that's listening, they're gonna be like, did he say that? I don't know. But anyways,
That's
uh,
so good.
the uh, the the decision came down to the fact that for Mufasa, one of the reasons was good father good father and king or something like that. I put them both on the same line instead of
Mhm.
separate lines, and so when I added them up, I didn't read it, but when I added it back up, I was like, well, there's your winner. Carl Winslow's your winner. And then I was like, oh wait, but that's well, Mufasa's gonna have to write the judges or file a complaint or something because the decision's been made, and I frequently say that it could go either way. This is my list and my decision. So you with you and Vader, like someone could have come a little bit with a little bit more argument, and I've been like, yeah, fuck it, Vader wins. Vader goes on.
I will say, well, though, it's an interesting point with the Mufasa, because I feel like between him and Carl, it becomes down like, or it comes down to quality versus quantity. Like Mufasa didn't really have the opportunity to showcase how good of a dad he was since he died, uh, but Carl could. So then it's like, well, yeah, I can see how that could play into the equation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like when you look at it from afar, Mufasa is obviously the better dad because his short influence still made Simba a great man, or well, a great lion and a great king years later, whatever, however long he was there.
Yeah,
So it's obvious that had he been around the entire time, that he would have been the clear winner, a number one seed probably. But yeah, one of his faults was that he is too trusting, he is too loyal, and that was his downfall. So this last little bit is actually a bit of rapid fire, and we don't have to rapid fire through it. We're not, running out of time or anything.
sure.
But I did want to kind of it's almost like not really the word game, but you'll know what I'm talking about, and I could describe it better, but I'm stupid. So we'll just start, and you'll know immediately how to answer.
Sure, sure.
So first off, uh, Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees?
Jason Voorhees
All right.
for
Any
me.
like uppermost reason why?
It all comes down to I just prefer Friday the 13th. Oh, I love, like, Wes Craven is on my Mount Rushmore of horror creators. Um, but I have a deep love for the cheese and just absurdity of Friday the 13th. Uh yeah, so it's got to go to Jason for me.
Do you have a favorite movie, favorite part?
Part 4 is my favorite one. Um, I controversially like part 5. I just like Tommy Jarvis's whole deal. But part 4, the dancing scene is one of my favorite scenes in cinema, if you know what I'm talking about.
I'm
Um,
sure I'm sure that I do because I've seen it, but it's not springing to mind.
sure. It also has one of my favorite quotes of all time, which is "Holy jumping Jesus Christmas shit." Um,
Is Ford the one where they're in the teen home?
yeah. Or no, no, no. That's 5, I believe. 4 is with Tommy Jarvis as a kid,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and spoiler alert, he kills Jason in that one, but he comes back
Actually,
later.
he does come back. Um, the one I think 2, 3, and 4, it'd be hard for me to pick between those.
Sure.
They're all pretty equal in my mind. Like you mentioned, 5. The only thing I don't like about 5 is that I don't like what they end up kind of doing again later, and that like it's a curse or something that can be like almost passed
Yeah.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not really down with Jason's a zombie. That end of story.
Yeah.
Um, so I am for those that care. I'm a Jason. I mean, I'm a Freddy man myself. I saw it way too early. I had years and years of nightmares about Freddy, and it got to the point where I was able to, like some people are lucky enough that they can lucid dream, where they'll they'll see something and they'll be like, okay, I'm dreaming, I can fly now. I didn't get that far, but I got to the point where Freddie would pop up and would I could be running through a field of roses and Freddie would pop up and I'd be like, all right, time to wake up. And then I wouldn't wake up, but I would immediately go to a different dream.
Oh, that
And
sucks.
so I was able to like run from him, so to speak, but I could never fight him. And I if I ever before I was able to do that, like when I would, when it was just a nightmare, I would always like wake up or screaming or whatever. So it hit really close to home. I watched that and Jaws. I hate whoever showed those to me when they did, because they have ruined large portions of my life forever after. But moving on, Michael Jackson or Prince?
I wasn't ready for that. I'm gonna okay, I think I'm going to give it, neither choice feels right to say, but I'm gonna say Michael Jackson. Yeah, I think so, and the only reason I'll say Michael Jackson is because when I was, gosh, how old was I? Like 14, 15. I went through this huge Michael Jackson phase, deep dove into his music, and just, and Prince, I have the utmost respect for in the world, and he blows me away as well. But I never quite had the Prince phase that I went through the Michael Jackson phase with. So purely on my exposure, I'm gonna go Michael Jackson, and purely on music as well.
Yeah, I tend to
Yeah.
agree. Prince is awesome. Prince is amazing, but it personally, I did
Mhm.
not have the exposure to him until a bit later in life. Like I was listening to Michael Jackson before I could speak, but I
Yeah.
wasn't exposed to Prince until the first Batman movie, and
Sure.
so it was quite a bit of time for Michael to entrench himself into my psyche. Okay, so you mentioned that you are primarily a WWE fan,
Yes.
and I wanted to find something from that, and I could have gone, you know, a little bit eclectic. I could have, come with something, really hard, but I'm gonna hit that tried and true. Are you Rock or are you Stone Cold?
Oh, that's um I'm gonna go. I'm gonna. I'm gonna go. I'm going Stone Cold. Um, the Rock has the longevity, and obviously, whenever he makes a return, he gets a pop out of me. I'll mark out for the Rock. Um, I think just the impact that Stone Cold had in the time frame that he was the guy, um, is, I mean, unbelievable. It's totally remarkable that he just became that huge, um, and then just kind of poof. Uh,
And really has never like chose to come back for any sort of real match or anything.
yeah,
I respect him for that. I pick Stone Cold like strictly based on personality.
Hmm.
and he is the closest to me in that like I'm not an outgoing like popular person like The Rock is. I may wish I were like that. Maybe Stone Cold wishes he were like that, but we are not, and we tend to get bitter about it maybe, and so it becomes more of an entrenched trait that we just can't let go of. And so yeah, I go with him. I don't know if you were at all a fan. I found this on accident, but he posted this video on Instagram a week or so ago of him trying an ice bath for the first time, or
Oh,
whatever it is. And it wasn't like ice, but it was like super cold water, renew you, something like that. Anyways, he videotaped it, and the first time he tapes it, it is the funniest thing I've seen in maybe months. I
oh, I
laughed
have to check
so
it out.
hard. I watched it again and again because it's the first time he's ever done it, and it's so cold. He's cussing. He can barely stand it. He keeps like trying to start the video and then restarting. Like he doesn't turn off the video, but he's like, "This is Steve Austin Broken Skull Ranch. This is Steve Austin Broken Skull Ranch." It's so funny. And he does another one after that where at the end he's like, "We're gonna revisit this shit," and he like jumps out, runs away. And then he goes and talks to a buddy that does it and comes back and films it again and like jumps right in and ducks his head. And it is a bit funny, but that it does nowhere near the humor, or brings nowhere near the humor that the first one does. So if you
Sure.
are interested, just type Steve Austin ice bath or something like that. I'm sure you'll pick it up.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
okay, so now things get a bit harder.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Kurt Cobain or Dave Grohl?
Oh, wow. Did you do any research for that question, or did that just come out
I
of
may or may not done a research.
okay, so that's pretty specific. Um, okay. At this point in my life, I'm gonna go Dave Grohl. Uh, teenage me would have been Kurt, but I feel like as I've gotten older, and maybe it's just because there's a lot more Foo Fighters and Dave Grohl content out there, um, that or music and experiences. Like I feel like Dave Grohl is the kind of guy that like I could have a beer with and it would just be fun and kind of laid back. And also he's always come across as somebody who like you could just listen to and like they just everything they say like just hanging on every word, um but also like a total goofball. So I'm gonna go Dave Grohl for that.
Cool reasoning. And I was interested how you would take that, because all I knew was that there were two names on your Facebook page, so I didn't know how much connection there was there.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so as I said, these get I say these get harder, but I'm really just joking. Uh, no sight forevermore or no hearing forevermore.
I'm gonna say no hearing. um I mean, well, I was about to say I'm a big sight guy, but I feel like everybody kind of is. It's kind of not anything. But my mother works for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services in of Minnesota, so she's fluent in sign language. So I feel like that would be an easier adjustment for me than not being able to see again.
All right, so that's cool. I mean, that made it easy to answer, but that's cool.
Yeah.
It's basically, do you want to be Daredevil or do you want to be Hawkeye? But along those same lines, we're going to come here to the end.
Oh.
And I used to ask a question of parents that had three or more children. Well, I used to say, and I suppose I still do, if you have three or more kids, that must mean you have some sort of superpower, because three kids is just chaos incarnate. I wasn't liking or I wasn't liking the answers I was getting, or maybe I wasn't liking the time they took to answer. So I've kind of simplified this one, and I'm only giving two options now. So you get a superpower. Are you going to take flight or are you going to take invisibility?
I'm gonna take flight. I feel like that would be more practical in my life. Especially, I mean, if I had the right suit that could kind of combat the coldness, Winter roads are not fun to drive on, and so if I didn't have to drive on that, I could just fly over. That'd be a lot easier. um, I feel like invisibility couldn't really get me anything but into trouble, and I don't really
Yeah, as soon as I said invisibility, I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of shady. Like if he picks invisibility, I'm gonna be like, so you're gonna hit up those locker
so
rooms
that's
then, right?
exactly that's exactly.
Yeah. So okay, that was actually more of a okay. So we're gonna revamp this a little bit. Flight or shit, what's it called? Flight or telepathy.
Ooh, like being
Like
a
you can't change their mind. You can only read their mind.
hmm. I think I'm still gonna go with flight because there's a lot of people I know that I'm not particularly interested in what is going on in their head.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah.
I'm not really. I'm not like as a youth. Maybe it would have been cool to have telepathy because
Yeah.
I could have been like, all right, will that girl have sex with me? But
You're
like,
right.
I mean,
You're not
I'm married.
wrong. I mean, yeah, you're right.
Uh,
I,
I'm married now though, and I know my wife will have sex with me, so it's not the same.
right, right.
I should have said I know my wife won't have sex with me because that would have been funnier, but I failed. I missed that one. Okay, so we are down here to the end. I have two more things that I wanted to get out. One of those is we try to end the show on it used to be on a dad joke, but I don't really do the dad jokes so much because the dad jokes can sometimes be a bit too cheesy for me,
Sure.
for my tastes. So I come with a bit more of an adult taste of joke, nothing too blue, as they say. But before we get to that, I did want to ask you one more serious dad question that I had meant to get to and never did. You
Yeah,
mentioned that you were a uh, the child of a single parent, and we didn't really get into where your dad was or how often you saw him. But I'm
sure.
curious, how did you learn to be a dad? Did he step back in later on and teach you those things, or did you have to learn on your own?
So I took a lot of inspiration from some of the other male figures in my life, um, and also um, some uh, like public figures, I guess you could say. Um, so, like my grandfather is one, my father-in-law, my stepdad was. I had a when in my teen years, my mom ended up getting married, and my stepdad was a pretty prevalent part of my life. He still is, uh, and um, but then also as I got older, well, I noticed that I would kind of latch on to, especially like professional wrestling, like John Cena or Jeff Hardy or something like. But I would always really latch on and kind of idolize these male figures. And I think as I got older, I realized that I was kind of trying to fill some of those gaps with their ideologies and learning from them. Um, and so I think just that life experiences, and like, I mean, my grandfather on my mom's side has always been, we've always had a good relationship. And then my wife's dad lives pretty close to us, and we have a pretty good relationship too. And so um, a lot of times it's kind of just that, and then just feeling it out. Qui-Gon Jinn is a good from Star Wars is also pretty good, So I think it's just kind of a lot of that. Once I I actually eventually so I dropped out of college after my first year, and after that is when I started taking education more seriously. I started to just read more and learn things. And I think in reading that led me to a lot of like philosophy not a lot of philosophy, but some philosophy and some historical figures. And um, so I think just really trying to gather all that information and just, like I said, I mean, at the very least, I know I'm going to be there for my kids. And, as long as I get that right, that's,
For sure.
yeah, right.
I mean, early on in the show, we would say that knowing is half the battle, but just being there is the other half. So, I mean, you're going to make mistakes because all parents do. But if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
there, if you're present, like, and not just present, but like, you're there. Like, okay, we're all going to check our phones and stuff, but you're like, you're there paying attention. Like
Hmm.
that's huge, and
Yeah.
that's going to put you like way ahead of the game. So, double down on that. Dad's got to be present. If you're not going to do anything else, start at being present, and then everything else you can work on from there. Um, okay, so two more things actually. Now,
Yeah.
as will happen, these will pop up, and this is another one of those this or that. And I didn't know until you mentioned it, but we're gonna go Star Wars or Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I get that question a lot. Those are two of my favorites. My answer is usually storyline wise, Lord of the Rings, but universe wise, Star Wars. Um, that's usually my answer. Um,
Does that mean
yeah.
that you would
So
like if you had a choice, you would live in the Star Wars universe?
yeah, I think I would do that. I also think there's a lot more potential. Like Middle Earth is fantastic, and Lord of the Rings is amazing. But it's like it ends at a certain point. Whereas I feel like the Star Wars universe is like ever expanding. There's so much potential for more stories. Some of them are kind of shitty, some of them are really good. But it just feels like it's so big and expansive sometimes, that yeah, I tend to I think yeah, if I could live in one of the universes, I'd probably choose the Star Wars universe if I could pick the planet I live on, because some of them I wouldn't want to live
Right on, yeah,
on.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Man, I don't know. I mean, I think that I would pick in the scenario I gave you, I would pick Lord of the Rings,
sure.
but that's because I'm more of a Star Trek fan. There
Yeah,
is a
total.
when I think of Star Trek and just like you mentioned the universe of it and the just the idea of it, I get like a warmer feeling, like it makes me feel better when I think
Hmm.
like there's like in Star Trek, you're like good's probably gonna, good's probably gonna win. Like
Yeah.
I know there's the Borg and all that, but like Captain Kirk and Janeway and everybody, they're gonna save the day at the end. Whereas in Star Wars, it's like, well, planets are going to be destroyed
Yeah.
and entire casts are going to die. And
Yeah.
I'm not even completely certain Grogu's going to grow up to be an adult.
Yeah, right. I don't know what the
So,
hell's gonna happen.
so yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot more uncertainty. And I don't like uncertainty. It's what keeps me going back to shows I've already seen before.
sure.
There's a sense of comfort I get from knowing what's going to happen. I've watched Wings from 1990s, like I don't know, 5 or 6 times through all the way, just because I get something out of it. Cheers is the same way, like that old show Cheers, and same way with
Sure.
that. So there seems to be okay. There is one more thing I was wondering, and this is a personal thing to me, not
Mhm.
like an intimate, but personal in my experience. I was wondering, in terms of your relationship with your wife's dad, do you call him dad or do you call him by his name?
I generally call him by his name. It's largely because growing up for a long time, like I said, my parents got married. My mom and my stepdad got married when I was a teenager, so I didn't have anyone to call dad, which led to now it's like I can't bring myself to genuinely call anybody dad. It just feels weird to me. Um, so yeah, I just refer to him by as Paul.
My dad, actually, he died last year, but I've never been one to like in our conversation, you may have noticed that I've never mentioned your first name. Like I'm
Sure,
not big on like I'm just not big on using names for whatever reason. And
sure,
so with that being said, I never really was like, "Hey dad, what are you doing, dad?" or anything like that. So I didn't get in the habit of calling him that when he was alive. And so similar to you, I'm just not comfortable saying that at all now.
sure.
And even with my wife kind of pushing the idea that he is your dad now, and him even acting more like a dad than mine did there for most of his life, it's still just it's not the same. And
Yeah.
I'm not like, it will never be the same as much as I wish it were otherwise.
Oh yeah.
I mean, similar to you, but to a lesser extent. Like, I really wish I had had a dad. Like it would have been awesome if if we had had dads. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
So,
totally.
there's like so much that I just like don't relate to. For example, not to get too far off the track here before we end things, but this is a share moment, so we'll get it out of the way. I am very quick to let go of people if
Sure.
they not necessarily just if they do me wrong, but if they like start to drift away due to work or whatever. I'm like, okay, they're gone out of my life. That's it. There's no, and I rarely will miss them, and I think that is, a partly due to my relationship with my dad, because
Sure.
I would never know, for the most part, when he was going to come back, come back around. And even when he did come back around, he was often drunk, or my mom was drunk and she would run him off. So,
Sure.
it was a very contentious relationship.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go. That's for listening the entire time. You get another little intimate detail from my life. So that does bring us down here to the end. And as I mentioned before, at the end, we always do like to get a little bit of a chuckle. In this particular episode, I think we did that on our own. But for anybody that did not laugh, fuck you. And this hopefully will make you laugh. This is actually a joke that I have told before, but when I went looking for a joke this time, I came up empty. So this one was funny to me a couple, I don't know, a few episodes ago. So I'm gonna go back to it. So a man is getting a checkup. The doctor looks up at him and he says, "You have to stop masturbating." The man says, "Why?" And the doctor says, "Because I'm examining you."
I think I have heard something along those lines before, but I love it.
The, crazy if the odds were that you actually heard that episode. Be that as it may, though, that was my attempt at a funny, at a ha ha here to end us. And I appreciate you not making fun of any of my silly jokes or my silly questions, jokes as well. Extra thanks for not making fun of those, because I'm very fragile. But overall, you continue my trend of being an awesome guest and someone that I could talk to at any point, be it on a podcast or just in regular life.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
it's always cool to not only meet someone that is going through similar issues with, like you have twice as much, but our children are both younger, so we're in that first initial dad phase, going through some similar things. And also, we also like some similar things with the Lord of the Rings and the wrestling and what have you. So
Yeah.
it's always cool to meet somebody like that. I will certainly be sending you a Facebook friend request after this, and you can one day see whatever reels we release from this episode. The episode itself will release before the reels, but you'll get to be internet famous if you're not already from M&A's Excellent Adventures. So with that being said, once again, thanks so much for joining us, Michael. You've been awesome. You've been so much fun to talk to. Before we go, though, is there anything else that you wanted to mention or get to?
um Make Corey Lewis famous. Because
Please.
please, please. No, this was a super fun show. I I am on M&A's Excellent Adventures. Whenever we post an episode, we have a little check out our friends tab. So I'll definitely, whatever link you want, we'll put it on every single episode of the season. So um, we just released 105. So for 106 to 200 at least, we can promote your show on our description for all of our episodes too, because this is really fun. It's a really good show. Um, and yeah, just I really love spaces that encourage dads.
For
So
sure, yeah.
yeah,
I definitely agree with that. I suppose, started the show for multiple reasons, but also because they're like you can. I did a test early on. I typed into Google, "Why does my wife yell at me?" And it basically came back, "You're not loving her enough. You're not paying enough attention." Something of that nature. And then I typed in,
sure.
"Why is my husband yelling at me?" And it was, "Here's a hotline. Maybe you need to call somebody. abuse this, abuse that. And it was just sad that, like, even though the situation is often reversed, that there was nothing for dads. You had to scroll
Yeah.
way down to get the resources. And I mean, we're not much, like there's a lot of, I just mentioned this the other day, like there's a lot of podcasts out there that, like, they tell you how to be they try to tell you how to be a better man or how to be a better dad. But this podcast, like, you're coming on and you're telling me how to be a better dad. Like, you're sharing your story with me and making me better for it. And I'm not trying to get you to do anything
Sure.
other than talk other than talk to me. So we try to make it just a real comfortable space. I keep saying we, but I guess I'm including the guests in this. And just someplace that's really cool to come in, share some stories and unload. We used to have it was super original name. I called it Grind My Gears, where we would complain about stuff our children were doing. And I should have copyright that. No one had ever come up with that before. That was totally original. Anyways, um, it was fun to be like, oh, my son won't pick up after himself. Da 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 da. It actually ended when we realized that kids are kids, and you can't really bother like wasting time complaining about stuff like that.
Yeah.
But with that being said, this is a place where you can come and complain, and you can talk about whatever you want, Lord of the Rings or being a divorced dad. It doesn't really matter. And I'm glad that we were able to touch on some of the more upbeat, happier things, because sometimes things get a little bit darker around here. And with that being said, though, you're obviously more than welcome to come back. I will continuously schedule new people, so it will have to be one of those things where I'm like, hey, I wonder if Michael wants to come back on, that sort of thing, or you bring it to my attention. But with
Sure.
that being said, though, the invitation is always open, always there. And because it was it's fun talking to you, and I'm sure that there's some other topics we can get into, like I said, deep, dark, or light and airy. But with that being said, be that the end, please, and let me stop rambling. And
I will say,
once more,
if you do want me, the dad tournament sounds like a pretty good time. If that's ever a guest spot, I would be happy to be part of something like that.
I could schedule that. Yeah, I mean, I will. I'll send you the information for the next couple of matchups, and
Sure.
if you want to sit in on one of those, then I will schedule that to be a time that when usually I'll just do it when my son's napping or something like that.
Sure.
But if you want to join in, we can schedule it for something like we did tonight.
Sure. Cool.
Those are typically a little bit shorter, at least when I'm doing them alone. So I can't tell you how long it will last, but probably not too awful long. But with that being said, though, I'm going to go ahead and end this before my wife gets tired of standing out there in the living room looking at her phone. And just once more, thanks so much for coming on. You've made this an easy conversation to have, and a fun one. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very, very happy that you commented on my Facebook post.
And
We got
yeah,
this rolling.
yeah, no worries, no worries. It worked out real good.
Yeah.
So with that, I guess from all of us here at Youth to Dads, we'll check you guys later.